we got some new laws here in the state of Nevada to discuss. Yes, 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 New Year has gone by. Beautiful 50-something degree day here in January in Las Vegas, and Vegas is always changing. So we got some stuff to talk about, some laws that have started here in 2025. We're also going to recap real quickly on the pedestrian bridge ordinance that went in through the county commission after F1's inaugural year. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. And then we'll close out with a potential new state drink, or a bill to have a state drink, I should say, here in the state of Nevada. So we'll close out with that. Kind of interesting. So some good, some bad, some neutral, depending on how you look at it and how much these things could impact you, whether you're tourist or local. I got my notes here. We will dive into some of this. Now, first thing I do want to cover for you guys here in Nevada that's interesting, and I've talked about this each time I've done one of these videos with new laws, is the political balance in this state is unique, to say the least. Because Nevada here at the state level had a split government from 1992 all the way to 2014. So for 22 years, neither party, Democrat or Republican, had the governor, the Senate, and the assembly. We call it assembly here. So there was always some split in terms of power. Neither party had all three of them. But there were 2 years the Republicans had all three. Then we were split, I believe, for a little while, for 2 years, and the Democrats had 4 years that they had all three. And now it's going to be split for 4 years until the next election because our governor's Republican, but the Senate and the Assembly are Democrat majority. So president, same thing. Over the recent years, all those decades as well, it's swings generally between Democrat and Republican as far as who wins the presidency here in Nevada. The City Council of Las Vegas over the years, and they're officially nonpartisan, but over the years they've actually been split. The Goodmans used to be Democrat, but they switched to nonpartisan. But with the new City Council that just came in, I haven't dove into that yet. So they are nonpartisan, but if you do a little digging, you can see usually if they're going to be Democrat or Republican. And then one thing that's interesting, the Clark County Commission. So the Clark County Commission is in charge of all the, people think of like the Strip. Well, everything south of Sahara is all unincorporated Clark County. So people are mad about like the F1 pedestrian bridge ordinance. That was the county commission, not the city council, and not even the state. But the county commission is interesting because that's been, all 7 of them have been Democrat for years. And just recently, this last election, 1 Republican won a spot on the county commission. So now there's 1 Republican, 6 Democrats, and it was the first Republican since 2008. So that's one that is a bit interesting. The county commission tends to be overwhelmingly Democrat and has been so for some time. Now, after F1's inaugural year, remember the county didn't waste much time passing a new ordinance about no one being able to stop and stand on the pedestrian bridges, something that impacts lots of tourists and locals. Well, the local news here reported
at the start of the year, Clark County commissioners passed an ordinance creating pedestrian flow zones on the Las Vegas Strip's pedestrian bridges, citing a disproportionately higher number of police calls to these bridges.
Right. So the key was that you can't stop or stand in these flow zones. Otherwise, you could get a misdemeanor. The law is very controversial. In fact, the ACLU has an ongoing lawsuit against the county. But is it working? 8 News Now reporter Ryan Tismaneski looks into it.
At the start of the year, Clark County passed the Flow Zone Ordinance. So far in 2024, Metro police officers made at least 122 arrests for Clark County's pedestrian flow zone ordinance. That's according to a letter they sent me after a records request. I've got a copy of the ordinance right here. Here's what it states. To maintain the safe and continuous movement of pedestrian traffic, it is unlawful for any person to stop, stand, or engage in an activity that causes another person to stop or stand within any pedestrian flow zone. So if I stop moving right now, I'm breaking the law. The penalty for breaking said law is up to 6 months in jail or a fine up to $1,000, or a combination of the two.
So some people like it, some people don't, but they definitely went ahead and went with the enforcement of it after it was passed. So that is being enforced here on the Strip. Now, first thing we'll talk about, for those of you that know, if you've been on Vegas roads, this one you might find interesting because one new law is a prohibition of unlicensed motorcycle operation. This was a change. This Nevada law prohibits residents from driving a motorcycle on highways without a valid motorcycle driver's license or permit. Violating this law is classified as a misdemeanor. Well, now there's an alternate. So alternative to fines for violations. So Senate Bill 423 mandates courts to offer a motorcycle safety course as an alternative to imposing a fine or violation. So previously, you got a fine, you paid a penalty for it. Now they give you the opportunity to go and take this safety course instead of paying the fine. Oh, and by the way, if you're either a local or planning to be a local in the future, if you guys didn't know, I am a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Nevada. So if you guys need help with that moving process, especially when it comes to buying a home, there's a link down below. And an agent that I've known for over a decade named Lacey, you've seen her on the channel before probably, she'll be the one to get in contact with you and help you game plan your entire move and home buying process here to Las Vegas. Second one we're going to talk about, this one I didn't even know actually took place here in Nevada. So this one phases out sub-minimum wage payments for employees with disabilities. So Assembly Bill 259 eliminates paying people less than minimum wage if they have intellectual or developmental disabilities by January 2028. So the transition plan for this is that job providers must create a plan to transition affected employees to earning at least the state minimum wage, $12 an hour, and it's effective immediately that providers of jobs and day trading services can no longer enter contracts paying below the state's minimum wage. The existing federal law, interestingly enough, authorizes an employer to request a special certificate to employ a person impaired by age, physical or mental deficiency or injury at wages less than minimum wage. I was not aware of this. So sub-minimum wage certificates, organizations with these certificates will no longer have them recognized by the state of Nevada. Many organizations have already discontinued using these certificates. And also, as far as there's a segment here about Medicaid benefit counseling. So the law also allows Department of Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Services Division to provide counseling services. These services help individuals with disabilities understand their benefits and determine how many hours they can work while maintaining Medicaid benefits. The third law that we have here in 2025 that's into effect, this prohibits state purchases of drones from U.S. enemy entities. So Senate Bill 11 restricts state agencies and law enforcement from operating, purchasing, or acquiring drones from entities designated as enemies by the U.S. Department of Defense, particularly those linked to the Chinese military. The regulation requirements say the Department of Public Safety must establish regulations listing countries and businesses prohibited from selling drone equipment to state agencies or law enforcement. So they still can get approved drone equipment if they want, but it says Nevada law enforcement and public agencies can only purchase drone equipment from sources approved by the U.S. Department of Defense. And then for permitted drone uses, it says the state agencies may use drones for fire code and inspection services. The law prohibits public agencies from collecting photographs with drones during inspections. The fourth change we'll talk about in the laws are now an exemption on sales tax on diapers. This was Senate Bill 428, which exempts child and adult diapers from sales tax. This was Senate Bill 428, which exempts child and adult diapers from state sales tax. So the approval process for this passed unanimously during the 2023 legislative session, and then it required voter approval via ballot question 5, which happened in the 2024 election, and it passed overwhelmingly, 69% to about 32%, so rounded figures. The impact on Nevada families says that families spend an average of $1,000 on diapers per child annually. This is expected to save them up to $84 per year, as noted in the state ballot guide. The fifth change is the establishment of structured family caregiving programs. So Assembly Bill 208 creates a program to provide structured family caregiving for certain Medicaid recipients with dementia. Requires the Department of Health and Human Services to apply for a home and community-based services waiver to include structured family caregiving for Medicaid recipients with dementia. Also expands on expansion of existing caregiving programs. So Nevada law already requires DHS to apply a waiver covering family home caregiving for Medicaid recipients with physical disabilities. Assembly Bill 208 expands the program to include Medicaid recipients with dementia. This does require that applicants choose their caregiver and their residence where they will receive the caregiving. Requires the caregiver to become an employee of an agency that provides personal care services in the home or an intermediary service organization, and they receive a daily stipend through their employer. Now, the state drink, let's talk about this. This is interesting to see in the article. So the state drink could soon be added to the list of new bills that are going to be new bills that are going to be reviewed, in the 2025 legislative session that they certainly will be having discussions on. So Assemblyman Bert Gurr from Spring Creek is sponsoring a bill draft request designated Pecan Punch as the official state drink to commemorate the Basque heritage of the state. So this is something that the Basque community. It's a large ethnic group here in Nevada, not so much in southern Nevada, definitely more so northern Nevada. So then that's where this representative is from. So northern Nevada and also southern Idaho have large populations of people from the Basque country, which I used to think it was completely in Spain, but actually it goes into France as well. So that's a sizable ethnic group here in the state of Nevada, much more northern Nevada though than southern Nevada. So he's putting that forward. We here in Nevada may have a state drink by the end of the 2025 legislative session. We'll have more new laws happening here in later 2025 as well that I'm going to eventually plan to do a video on those so you guys can stay up to date on whether your travel plans, whether you're living here or planning to move here in the future, because laws can definitely affect your lifestyle and your quality of life depending on where you live or where you visit. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm Jacob. This is My Life in Vegas.